What if the small things you do every day are actually the big things? You know, we always hear about life-changing moments. But in my experience, change doesn't happen all at once. It's not some dramatic movie scene. It's quiet, slow, and very often invisible at first. In this episode, I want to share with you some of the little habits that have truly improved my life. And I'm not talking about things that require a big schedule or tons of motivation. These are habits that are simple, small, but powerful. If you stay with me until the end, you might just find one or two that could become a quiet turning point for you too. So grab a cup of tea, take a deep breath, and let's begin this slow, thoughtful conversation. Just you and me. Why do little habits even matter? You might be wondering, why focus on little habits? Aren't big goals more exciting? Well, here's the thing. Big goals can inspire you, but little habits shape you. They build your day. They build your identity. When I started paying attention to the small things, like how I begin my mornings, how I speak to myself when I make a mistake, how often I check my phone, I realized something. My habits were quietly running the show. Whether I felt calm or overwhelmed, confident or scattered, it all came down to those tiny choices I was making on autopilot. So today, I want to slow down with you and really look at some of the quiet habits that have brought more peace, more clarity, and more energy into my life. Let's explore them together, gently and without pressure. How I started my mornings differently, and everything changed. Let's start with mornings, because how you begin the day often shapes how the rest of it goes. For a long time, my mornings were chaotic. I'd reach for my phone the moment I opened my eyes. I'd scroll through social media before I even sat up. And I never really gave myself a moment to just arrive. So one day I made a small change. I stopped keeping my phone next to my bed. Instead, I placed it across the room. And in its place, I left a notebook and a pen. The first few mornings felt strange, almost too quiet. But then something beautiful started happening. I began to write a few lines. Nothing fancy, just how I felt, or what I hoped for that day. This tiny shift created a kind of mental space before the world came in. It didn't make me perfect or super productive, but it gave me presence. And presence, my friend, is what we're often missing. The habit of checking in with myself. This next one is deeply personal, and honestly, it changed the way I relate to myself. It's the habit of checking in. Not just physically, like, am I hungry, aitat, or am I tired? But emotionally. I started asking myself, how am I, really? Not just once a week. Not when things exploded, but daily. Sometimes I'd pause in the middle of the afternoon, take a slow breath, and quietly ask, what's happening inside me right now? And sometimes the answer surprised me. I'd realize I was holding tension I didn't notice, or feeling discouraged, or even proud, and hadn't given myself credit. This habit helped me feel more human, more connected, and it reminded me that I'm not a machine. I don't have to push through everything. I can respond to myself with care, and that changed everything. Replacing all or nothing thinking. Let's talk about a habit that's more about mindset than action. And yet it shaped so many areas of my life. It's about letting go of all or nothing thinking. You know what I mean? The voice that says, if I can't do a full workout, it's not worth doing anything. Or, if I broke my diet today, I've failed completely. That kind of thinking used to control me. It made me give up too soon and feel like small steps weren't enough. But slowly, and I really mean slowly, I started to shift. I began telling myself, Something is better than nothing. A 5-minute stretch is better than no movement. A kind word to myself is better than self-blame. Progress is not perfection. And that shift allowed me to actually build consistency, because I stopped needing everything to be perfect before I could begin. Learning the power of tiny breaks. Here's one that's especially helpful if you tend to overwork or get stuck in mental loops. It's the habit of taking tiny breaks before you think you need them. I used to wait until I was completely drained before I allowed myself to pause. But I've learned that energy, like time, needs management, not just recovery. Now I've built in the habit of short, intentional pauses. A 2-minute walk, a breath at the window, closing my eyes between tasks. These little breaks don't waste time, they restore clarity. And honestly, they've helped me avoid burnout more than any vacation ever could. The more I respect my natural rhythm, the more I find that I can show up, with energy, with focus, and with presence. Choosing inputs that feed my mind. This habit took me a while to understand, but now it's one of my favorites. It's about choosing what I consume. And no, I don't mean food. I mean mental inputs. What am I watching? What am I listening to? Who am I following online? For a long time, I let my attention be pulled in every direction. News, drama, endless scrolling. But it left me drained. So I started to curate my inputs. I followed creators who inspired me. I listened to podcasts that lifted me. I gave myself permission to mute, unfollow, or delete things that didn't feel good. And that habit, choosing mental nutrition, has protected my peace in a world that often tries to take it away. Creating small systems that support me. Let's talk about environment, because your surroundings often influence your success more than willpower. One habit that really helped me was creating tiny systems. For example, putting a glass of water next to the coffee machine reminded me to hydrate first thing in the morning. Leaving my workout clothes near the door made it easier to exercise. These are simple things, but they removed friction. They helped me follow through, not because I had more motivation, but because I made things easier for myself. We often expect ourselves to just do better. But the truth is, design beats discipline. And small systems can make a huge difference. The power of ending the day gently. We've talked a lot about how to start the day, but how you end it matters just as much. I used to stay up late, staring at screens, scrolling endlessly, and then wonder why I couldn't sleep or why I woke up feeling tired. So I began a tiny nighttime habit. Just 10 minutes before bed, I'd turn off my devices and dim the lights. I'd stretch a little, sometimes journal, or just sit quietly and ask, what am I carrying tonight? This small moment of stillness helped me close the day, not just physically, but emotionally. It became a soft signal to my body and mind. We're done for today. Rest now. And over time, that gentle ending became a gift to my tomorrow self. What happens when you trust the slow magic of small things? So here we are. You've made it to the end. And I want to leave you with this thought. What happens when you stop waiting for big breakthroughs and start trusting the slow magic of small things? You don't need to change everything overnight. You don't need to become someone new. What you need, maybe, is just one little habit. One gentle, doable shift that fits into your real, messy, beautiful life. For me, these little habits didn't make life perfect, but they made it possible to feel clearer, calmer, and more like myself. And that's worth everything. So I invite you, after this episode ends, to choose one small habit. Try it. Be kind to yourself. Stay curious. And trust that something tiny might be the beginning of something truly big.